The stars were quiet, and that was exactly how the Galactic Consortium liked it. For 3,000 years, peace had ruled the galaxy. 17 different alien species lived together, without war, without fighting, without the chaos that had once torn worlds apart. The secret was simple. Everyone followed the rules. Elder Morthak of the Kalari race stood on the observation deck of Station Prime, watching cargo ships move slowly between the planets. Each ship followed the same careful path, announced itself properly, and waited for permission before docking. Everything was orderly. Everything was peaceful. Everything was exactly as it should be. The Kalari had taught the galaxy how to live this way. They were old, older than any other race, and they had seen what happened when species fought each other. Planets burned, billions died, entire civilizations turned to dust. So they had created a better way. They made rules for everything. Rules for trade, rules for travel, rules for talking to each other. Rules that kept everyone safe. Dr. Zixara, a young Kalari diplomat, walked up beside the elder. Her blue skin shimmered in the starlight, and her large eyes reflected the distant suns. "The morning reports, Elder," she said, handing him a data pad. "All sectors report normal activity. No conflicts, no violations, no problems." Morthak nodded slowly. "Good. As it has been for 1,000 days, as it shall be for 1,000 more." He touched the data pad with one long finger. "The Vorthon trade dispute?" "Resolved through proper mediation channels," Zixara replied. Both sides accepted the compromise. No one was harmed. "And the Nexari territorial question?" "Submitted to the Council of Worlds. They will debate it for the proper amount of time, then reach a fair decision." This was how things worked in the civilized galaxy. Problems were discussed, not fought. Over. Disagreements were mediated by neutral parties. Everyone got something, no one got everything, and peace continued. It had worked for 3 millennia. It would work forever. But Morthak felt something strange as he looked out at the stars, a feeling he had not experienced in centuries. Unease. As if something was coming. Something that would change everything. He dismissed the thought. The Kalari were sometimes gifted with foresight, but this felt different. This felt like fear. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, things were very different. The humans who lived there had just figured out how to travel faster than light. They had built ships that could cross the vast emptiness between stars, and they were excited about it. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of the human ship Liberty, staring at a screen full of star charts. His brown hair was messy from running his hands through it, and his blue eyes were bright with enthusiasm. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, preparing for humanity's first journey to another star system. "Navigation ready, Captain," called out Lieutenant Sam Parker from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and dark skin. Like most of the crew, she had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to see what was out there. "Engines online," reported Chief Engineer Bob Nelson, a big man with gray hair and oil-stained coveralls. He had spent months working on the faster-than-light drive, making sure it would not explode when they used it. "All systems green." Jake nodded and pressed a button on his command chair. "This is Captain Morrison to all crew. We are about to make history. Humanity is about to take its first step into the larger universe. Everyone ready?" Voices came back through the ship's communication system. "Ready? Let's do this. About time." The humans were not calm and orderly, like the aliens of the consortium. They were loud, excited, and impatient. "Engage faster than light. Drive," Jake ordered. The Liberty jumped forward, disappearing from Earth's solar system in a flash of light and energy. The jump was not smooth and quiet like the ships of other species. It was rough, violent, and left an energy trail that could be detected from far away. The humans did not care. They were finally free to explore the stars. 3 days later, the Liberty detected something amazing. Radio signals from another world. Not random noise, but organized patterns that could only mean one thing: intelligent life. Jake and his crew were thrilled. They were about to make first contact with an alien civilization. "Send them a message," Jake ordered. "Tell them who we are and that we come in peace." Lieutenant Parker worked at her station preparing a radio transmission. "What should I say, Captain?" Jake thought for a moment. "Keep it simple. Tell them we're from Earth, we're human, and we want to be friends." The message was transmitted on all frequencies, loud and clear. "This is the Earthship Liberty. We are humans from the planet Earth. We come in peace and friendship. We would like to meet you." The response came back quickly, but it was not what they expected. The alien message was complex, full of formal language and ceremony. It spoke of protocols and procedures, of proper channels and authorized representatives. It asked the humans to wait for official contact through diplomatic means. Jake frowned at the message. "They want us to wait? For how long?" "The message mentioned something about a galactic consortium and proper first contact procedures," Parker replied. "It could take months, maybe years." "Years?" Jake shook his head. "We're right here. They're right there. Why do we need to wait? Years to say hello?" This was the difference between humans and the civilized galaxy. The aliens believed in patience, in following the correct steps, in doing things the proper way. Humans believed in action, in getting things done and making things happen now. Back at Station Prime, the alien message center was buzzing with activity. The humans' transmission had been detected by dozens of species, and everyone was talking about it. The message was crude, direct, and completely ignored every rule of first contact. Dr. Lisa Harper, the consortium's chief xenobiologist, studied the human transmission with growing concern. She was a Zephyrian, a race known for their careful analysis and logical thinking. Her purple skin was marked with silver patterns that showed her high rank in the scientific community. "This is most irregular," she said to her assistant, a young Nexari named Kiptar. "They have made no attempt to follow established protocols. No formal diplomatic overture, no cultural exchange request, no acknowledgement of consortium authority." Kiptar's 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of confusion in his species. "Perhaps they do not know of our ways." All spacefaring species discover the consortium within their first decade of interstellar travel, Lisa replied. "It is impossible to miss our presence, yet these humans act as if they have never heard of us." She played the human message again, listening to the strange accent and unusual word choices. The humans spoke directly, without the flowery language and ceremonial phrases that marked civilized communication. They sounded almost primitive. "Their technology appears crude but functional," she continued. "Their faster-than-light method creates massive energy disturbances. Their ship design follows no recognized aesthetic or engineering principles, and their first message completely ignores 3,000 years of diplomatic tradition." Kiptar's skin changed color slightly, showing his nervousness. "What do we do?" Lisa considered the question carefully. The consortium had procedures for everything, including first contact with new species. But those procedures assumed the new species would be reasonable, patient, and willing to follow the rules. These humans seemed to be none of those things. "We follow protocol," she decided. "Send them the standard first contact package. Explain our procedures, our rules, our expectations. If they are truly intelligent, they will understand and comply." But even as she gave the order, Lisa felt the same unease that Elder Morthak had experienced. These humans were different. They were loud where the galaxy was quiet, direct where others were subtle, impatient where others were willing to wait. They reminded her of something from the old stories, something the galaxy had not seen for thousands of years. They reminded her of the ancient destroyers, the legendary race that had nearly torn the galaxy apart before vanishing into myth and memory. But that was impossible. The destroyers were gone, extinct. Nothing but stories told to frighten young aliens, weren't they? The message from the Galactic Consortium reached Earth 3 weeks later. It was long, formal, and filled with rules. The humans read it with growing frustration. The aliens wanted humanity to send one small diplomatic ship to a neutral meeting station. They wanted formal credentials, cultural exchange data, and proof that humans were civilized enough to join their group. President Maria Rodriguez called an emergency meeting in Washington. Around the table sat the best minds humanity had to offer. General Frank Willis represented the military. Dr. Susan Taylor spoke for the scientists. Ambassador Carl Johnson was their top diplomat, and Captain Jake Morrison was there because he had been the first human to make contact. 12 pages of requirements just to say hello, President Rodriguez said, holding up the alien message. They want us to prove we are peaceful, prove we are intelligent, prove we deserve to talk to them. General Willis frowned. His gray hair was cut short in military style, and his green eyes showed his anger. Who are they to judge us? We have been to our moon, built space stations, created amazing technology. We do not need their permission to exist. Dr. Taylor adjusted her glasses and looked at the translation again. She was a thin woman with brown hair and kind eyes, but right now she looked worried. The message mentions something called a civilization assessment. They want to test us before we can join their consortium. Test us? Captain Morrison laughed, but there was no humor in it. We traveled between the stars to meet them, and they want to give us a test? Ambassador Johnson tried to be diplomatic. He was an older man who had spent his career making peace between countries on Earth. Perhaps we should follow their procedures. This could be their way of preventing conflicts. Or it could be their way of keeping others out of their club, General Willis replied. How many species have they rejected? How many civilizations have they turned away? President Rodriguez made her decision. We will meet with them, but we do it our way. Captain Morrison, I want you to lead a fleet to this meeting station. Take enough ships to show we are serious. How many ships, Madam President? Morrison asked. 12. All armed. All ready for anything. The room went quiet. Ambassador Johnson looked shocked. Madam President, they specifically requested one diplomatic vessel. Bringing 12 warships could be seen as aggressive. Good, President Rodriguez said firmly. Let them see who they are dealing with. Humanity did not crawl out of caves and build civilizations by asking permission. We take what we earn, and we earn what we take. 3 months later, the human fleet arrived at Harmony Point, the neutral station where first contact was supposed to happen. The station was beautiful, built from white metal and crystal that gleamed in the light of a nearby star. It was designed to look peaceful, welcoming, and safe. The humans completely ignored the beauty. They saw a space station that could be defended or attacked. They noted weapon positions, shield generators, and escape routes. They approached like soldiers, not tourists. Commander Ryan Burke led the human diplomatic team. He was a big man with short black hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. Behind him walked Dr. Amy Foster, humanity's best expert on alien cultures. She was young, eager, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen. Alien delegation was waiting in the main meeting hall. Representatives from 7 different species stood in a careful arrangement that showed their relative importance and status. Each wore ceremonial clothing that took hours to put on correctly. Each had practiced their greeting speech for weeks. Commander, Burke walked into the room wearing his military uniform and combat boots. He looked around at the aliens, nodded once, and said, I am Commander Ryan Burke, representing Earth and humanity. We are here to talk. The silence that followed was so complete that Dr. Foster could hear her own heartbeat. The aliens stared, at Burke, then at each other, then back at Burke. No formal introduction, no ceremonial greeting, no acknowledgement of their customs. Just a direct statement that ignored 3,000 years of diplomatic tradition. Elder Zorthun of the Kalari stepped forward. He was ancient even by his species' standards, with skin so pale it was almost white, and eyes that had seen centuries pass. When he spoke, his voice was soft and musical, like wind through crystal chimes. Welcome, beings of Earth. We greet you in the name of peace and harmony. May your journey bring wisdom. May your words bring understanding. May your presence bring joy to all who— Thank you, Burke interrupted, extending his hand. Nice to meet you. Dr. Foster watched in horror as Burke reached out to shake hands with the elder. In human culture, it was a friendly gesture. In Kalari culture, it was an act of violence. Physical contact between strangers was forbidden, especially touching an elder without permission. Elder Zorthon recoiled as if Burke had pulled out a weapon. Several other aliens made sounds of shock and distress. The ceremonial greeting, which should have taken 20 minutes of careful ritual, had been destroyed in 20 seconds. "Commander Burke?" Dr. Foster whispered urgently. "You cannot touch them. Physical contact is considered assault in their culture." Burke looked confused. "I was just being friendly." Ambassador Veltara of the Nexari Federation spoke next. Her blue skin showed patterns of deep concern, and her 4 arms moved, in what Dr. Foster recognized as a distress signal. "Human Burke, your actions show great disrespect. Do you seek to offend?" "No offense intended," Burke replied loudly. His voice echoed in the hall, making several aliens flinch. Most species communicated through quiet tones, pheromone releases, or harmonic frequencies. Humans were the only ones who shouted when they talked. "Perhaps we should begin the cultural exchange portion of our meeting," suggested Dr. Kickstar, a Zephyrian scientist. "We have prepared information about our societies, our histories, our peaceful traditions." Burke crossed his arms. "Before we get into all that, I have some questions. How many ships does the consortium have? What kind of weapons? How big is your territory? And why were not we invited to join your group earlier?" The questions hit the alien delegation like a series of explosions. Military capabilities were never discussed in polite society. Territorial boundaries were sensitive topics that required careful negotiation. And the suggestion that the consortium should have invited humanity implied that the aliens had failed in some duty. Dr. Foster tried to save the situation. "What Commander Burke means is that we are curious about your organization and how it works." But Burke was not finished. "We have been traveling in space for decades. We have colonies on other worlds. We have explored dozens of star systems. Yet you act like we just discovered fire. What gives you the right to judge whether we are civilized?" The alien delegation exchanged glances that Dr. Foster did not like. She recognized the look from her studies of animal behavior. It was the way predators looked at each other when deciding whether something was prey or threat. Elder Zorthon spoke carefully. "Young species often display aggressive tendencies. It is natural. The civilization assessment helps determine whether a species is ready for peaceful coexistence." "Aggressive tendencies?" Burke's voice rose even louder. "You want to see aggressive? We fought wars on our planet for thousands of years. We built weapons that could destroy entire continents. We conquered our own world through strength and determination. If that makes us too aggressive for your club, then maybe your club is too weak for us." The words hung in the air like poison. Several aliens stepped backward. Others began making rapid gestures that Dr. Foster recognized as emergency signals. The Kalari elder's pale skin turned even whiter if that was possible. "Commander Burke," Dr. Foster said urgently, "please stop talking." But the damage was done. The humans had revealed themselves to be exactly what the galaxy feared most: a warlike species that gloried in conflict and saw violence as a solution to problems. In 5 minutes of conversation, they had confirmed every stereotype about primitive civilizations. Dr. Nixara, a young Vorthan diplomat, spoke in a voice that trembled with fear. "You speak of war as if it were something to be proud of. You describe weapons of mass destruction as achievements. Do you not understand that such things are forbidden among civilized beings?" Burke looked genuinely confused. "Forbidden? How do you defend yourselves? How do you protect what is yours? How do you make others respect you?" "Through negotiation," Elder Zorthon replied. "Through compromise. Through understanding." "And what happens when negotiation fails?" The aliens looked at each other in confusion. In their experience, negotiation never failed. There was always a compromise, always a peaceful solution. The idea that some problems could not be solved through discussion was alien to them. "Negotiation does not fail," the elder said finally. "It cannot fail. There is always a way to find peace." Burke shook his head. Where we come from, sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies. Sometimes peace comes only after you prove you are not afraid of war. The meeting went downhill from there. Dr. Foster tried desperately to explain human culture in terms the aliens could understand, but every explanation made things worse. When she mentioned that humans competed with each other, the aliens heard humans fight among themselves. The emergency session of the Galactic Consortium Council lasted for 3 days. Representatives from all 17 member species gathered in the Great Hall on Kalari Prime, their voices rising and falling in heated debate. For the first time in 1,000 years, the council could not agree on what to do. Elder Morthak stood at the center of the circular chamber, his ancient hands trembling as he read the reports from Harmony Point. The human encounter had shaken him deeply. In all his centuries of life, he had never met beings so direct, so aggressive, so completely unaware of proper behavior. They ignored every protocol, he said to the assembled delegates. They brought weapons to a peace meeting. They touched, without permission. They spoke of war as if it were normal, and they questioned our right to maintain order. Ambassador Veltara of the Nexari leaned forward in her seat. Her blue skin showed deep purple stress patterns, and her forearms moved in agitated gestures. The humans are clearly not ready for civilized contact. I propose we extend the standard quarantine period from 50 years to 200 years. Perhaps by then they will have learned proper behavior. Several delegates agreed, their various forms of communication creating a chorus of approval. But not everyone was convinced. Dr. Zixara, the young Kalari diplomat, stood to speak. Her voice was quiet but clear in the Great Hall. With respect, Elder, I have studied the human transmissions. Their technology is crude but effective. Their society is chaotic but functional. They have achieved faster than light travel in less time than any other species on record. Perhaps we should not dismiss them so quickly. A Vorthon delegate made a sound of disapproval. Speed is not wisdom, young Zixara. The humans have proven they value progress over peace. This makes them dangerous. Dangerous to whom? Zixara asked. They have not attacked anyone. They have not threatened anyone. They simply refuse to follow our rules. Elder Morthak raised his hand for silence. The question is not whether they are dangerous now. The question is whether they will become dangerous if we allow them to grow unchecked. The ancient texts speak of a race called the Destroyers who nearly tore the galaxy apart with their violence. The humans show similar patterns. The mention of the Destroyers sent a chill through the chamber. Every species had legends of the ancient war, the time before the consortium when chaos ruled the stars. Most believed the Destroyers were extinct, but the fear remained. I call for a vote, Elder Morthak announced. All in favor of declaring humanity a pending threat and establishing a full quarantine around their space? 15 of the 17 species voted yes. Only the young Zixara and one Zephyrian scientist voted no. The decision was made. Humanity would be contained. The quarantine fleet was dispatched within days. 50 ships from various consortium worlds took positions around human space, creating a barrier that no human vessel could cross. Warning beacons were placed at every jump point, broadcasting a simple message: quarantine zone entry forbidden, turn back now. But the humans did not turn back. Ambassador Steve Collins arrived at the quarantine line 3 weeks after it was established. He commanded the Earth diplomatic vessel New Horizon, and he was humanity's last hope for a peaceful solution. Collins was older than most of the human negotiators, with gray hair and calm eyes. He had spent his career solving problems through discussion rather than force. This is Ambassador Collins of Earth, requesting permission to pass through your quarantine line, he broadcast to the consortium fleet. I come in peace to discuss our differences. The response came from Commander Tixara, a Nexari officer who had been placed in charge of the quarantine. Human vessel, you are not authorized to enter consortium space. Return to your territory immediately. Collins sighed. Even the peaceful approach was being rejected. Commander, I am here to negotiate. Surely we can find a solution that works for everyone. The solution already exists, Tixara replied. Remain in your space, follow our guidelines for civilized behavior, and in 50 years we will consider reopening communications. 50 years? Collins could not hide his shock. Commander, you are asking an entire species to wait 50 years just to talk to you. That is not reasonable. It is the standard procedure for dangerous species. The word dangerous hit Collins like a physical blow. Humanity had been classified as dangerous, like some sort of galactic criminals. He tried to keep his voice calm. We are not dangerous. We are simply different. Different in ways that threaten galactic peace, Tixara responded. We have seen your records, human Collins. Your species has fought wars for thousands of years. You have weapons that can destroy entire continents. You celebrate violence and competition. These are not the traits of a civilized people. Collins felt his diplomatic training warring with his human instincts. Part of him wanted to argue, to defend humanity's right to exist as they were. But another part knew that would only prove the aliens' point about human aggression. Commander, every species has a violent past. The difference is that we have learned to control that violence, to channel it into productive pursuits. We do not fight wars anymore. We explore space, we build cities, we create art and music and literature. We are not the monsters you think we are. Then prove it, Tixara said. Accept the quarantine, demonstrate peaceful behavior. Show us that humans can change. The conversation ended there, but Collins remained at the quarantine line for 3 more days, trying to find someone willing to listen. Every request was denied. Every appeal was rejected. The galaxy had made its decision about humanity, and nothing he said could change it. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the human response was exactly what the consortium feared. President Rodriguez called another emergency meeting, and this time the mood was very different. They have blockaded us, General Willis said, his face red with anger. They have trapped us in our own solar system like animals in a cage. This is an act of war. Dr. Taylor tried to be the voice of reason. Perhaps we should try to work within their system. If we can prove we are peaceful, they might. Prove we are peaceful? Willis interrupted. By doing what they tell us? By begging for their approval? By letting them decide whether we deserve to exist? Captain Morrison, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. The quarantine fleet has 50 ships. Our entire space navy has 200. If we wanted to break through their line, we could do it. President Rodriguez looked around the room at her advisors. She could see the anger in their faces, the frustration of being told they were not good enough for galactic society. What are our options? We could accept the quarantine, Ambassador Johnson suggested. Work within their system, prove we can. Be peaceful. For 50 years? The president asked. You want us to wait 50 years to be allowed to explore our own galaxy? Or we could ignore the quarantine, Morrison added. Continue our exploration and colonization plans. Let them try to stop us. General Willis nodded. Our ships are faster than theirs. Our technology is different, harder for them to predict. We could slip past their patrols, establish colonies beyond their reach. Dr. Taylor looked horrified. That would confirm everything they believe about us. They would see it as an act of aggression. They already see us as aggressive, Morrison pointed out. At least this way we would be free. President Rodriguez made her decision. We will not accept imprisonment. Humanity has never asked permission to be free, and we will not start now. Captain Morrison, you will lead a colonization mission past the quarantine line. General Willis, you will provide military escort. Dr. Taylor, you will document everything. If they want to see what humans are really like, we will show them. The first human ships broke through the quarantine line 6 days later. Captain Nina Rodriguez, the president's daughter, led a fleet of 12 colonization vessels and 20 escort ships. They used new engine designs that the consortium sensors could not track effectively, slipping past the blockade like ghosts in the night. Their destination was a system the consortium had marked as a neutral buffer zone. 3 planets, all suitable for human life, all empty of intelligent life. The humans saw opportunity. The consortium saw violation of their carefully maintained boundaries. The colony ships landed on the largest planet and immediately began construction. Within days, they had established a permanent settlement. Within weeks, they were mining resources and building infrastructure. Within months, they had named the planet New Texas and declared it a free human world. The consortium response was swift and predictable. Ambassador Veltara arrived with a diplomatic fleet and demanded that the humans leave immediately. The planet was reserved for future harmony, she explained. It was part of the buffer zone that kept different species from competing for resources. Captain Rodriguez met the alien diplomat in the colony's main building. She was young, confident, and completely unimpressed by consortium authority. Ambassador, we are not competing for resources. We are using resources that nobody else wanted. The designation of buffer zones is essential for galactic peace, Veltara replied, her skin showing patterns of extreme stress. You cannot simply ignore our territorial agreements. The consortium fleet appeared at the edge of the New Texas system on a Tuesday morning. 200 ships, the largest military force assembled in over 1,000 years. They came not to negotiate, but to remove the human settlements by force. The galaxy had run out of patience with humanity. Captain Nina Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the colony defense station, watching the alien fleet take positions around her world. Her heart pounded as she counted the ships on her screen. The Yosao humans had maybe 30 vessels in the system, including cargo ships and mining vessels. They were outnumbered 7-1. Captain, incoming transmission from the fleet commander, reported Lieutenant Dan Walsh, her communications officer. He was young, maybe 22, with nervous hands that shook as he worked his controls. Put it through, Rodriguez ordered. Face that appeared on the screen belonged to Admiral Kickstar of the Zephyrian Defense Force. His purple skin showed the silver markings of high military rank, and his large eyes held no warmth or mercy. When he spoke, his voice was cold and formal. Human settlement, this is Admiral Kickstar commanding the Consortium Enforcement Fleet. You have violated galactic law by establishing unauthorized colonies in protected space. You will evacuate all personnel within 24 hours or face removal by military force. Rodriguez stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. Admiral, this is Captain Nina Rodriguez. These worlds were empty when we arrived. We have harmed no one and threatened no one. We claim these planets by right of settlement. There is no such right under consortium law, Kickstar replied. You will comply with evacuation orders or face the consequences. And if we refuse? The Admiral's expression did not change. Then you will be removed. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Rodriguez looked around at her crew, seeing fear and determination in equal measure. They were colonists, not soldiers, but they were also human. And humans did not surrender without a fight. Open a channel to all human ships in the system, she ordered. This is Captain Rodriguez to all vessels. The consortium fleet has given us 24 hours to abandon our homes. I want to know right now, are we leaving or are we fighting? The responses came back quickly. Fighting, from the mining ship Golden Eagle. Fighting, from the cargo vessel Liberty Bell. Fighting, from every human ship in the system. Not one voice suggested surrender. Meanwhile, 3 systems away, Admiral John Parker received the emergency transmission from New Texas. He commanded the human defense fleet from his flagship, the battleship Defiance. When he heard about the consortium ultimatum, his response was immediate and decisive. All ships, maximum speed to New Texas system, he ordered. We have people in danger. Parker was a career military officer with gray hair and steel blue eyes. He had studied every available record of consortium military tactics during the quarantine period. What he found was 1,000 years of careful, ritualized combat designed to minimize casualties and preserve infrastructure. The aliens fought wars like they held diplomatic meetings with rules and procedures for everything. The humans were about to show them a different kind of war. The first battle began exactly 24 hours after the ultimatum expired. Admiral Kickstar moved his fleet into attack formation, following standard consortium tactical doctrine. His ships advanced slowly, broadcasting warnings to minimize civilian casualties. They targeted only military installations, using weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. The human response shocked them. Instead of following the established rules of civilized warfare, the humans attacked with everything they had. Mining, ships loaded with explosives rammed into consortium vessels. Cargo ships modified with improvised weapons struck from unexpected angles. The colonists fought like cornered animals, desperate and vicious. Captain Rodriguez led the defense from her command ship, a converted cargo vessel named Freedom's Call. She had no military training, but she understood something the aliens did not. When you fight for your home, there are no rules. All ships ignore their formation, she commanded. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and make every shot count. These are our worlds, and we will not give them up. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the humans had lost 12 ships and 300 people. The consortium had lost 4 ships and barely 200 casualties. By every measure of military science, the aliens had won. But they retreated anyway. Admiral Kickstar withdrew his fleet to a safe distance and sent an urgent message to consortium headquarters. The humans had fought with a savagery that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They used weapons the consortium had banned as unnecessarily brutal. They targeted command ships with focused destruction that made even hardened warriors recoil. Most disturbing of all, they seemed willing to die rather than surrender. The consortium council met in emergency session once again. The reports from the battle filled them with horror. Elder Morthak read the casualty lists with trembling hands, his ancient voice barely above a whisper. They fought without honor, he said, without restraint, without any regard for the rules that keep warfare from becoming slaughter. Ambassador Veltara was equally shaken. Admiral Kickstar reports that human civilians joined the battle. Children as young as 16 operated weapon systems. Elderly colonists served as suicide bombers. They turned their entire society into a military force. But Dr. Zixara saw something different in the reports. They fought for their homes, she pointed out, for their families, for their right to exist. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why. They were willing to die rather than accept our judgment. Elder Morthak's pale eyes flashed with anger. They fought because they are primitives who know only violence. The battle proves everything we suspected about their nature. Does it? Zixara asked quietly. Or does it prove that we never tried to understand them? The debate raged for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The consortium decided to assemble an even larger fleet, one capable of ending the human threat permanently. If humanity would not accept civilization, then humanity would be removed from the galaxy. The order went out to every member world. Prepare for total war against the human species. But humanity was preparing too. Admiral Parker arrived at New Texas 3 days after the first battle, bringing with him every ship Earth could spare. His fleet was smaller than the consortium force, but it was crewed by people who had nothing left to lose. Parker studied the tactical reports from the first battle with grim satisfaction. The aliens fought like they were playing a game, following rules that their enemies might not know or care about. The humans would use that weakness against them. They expect us to fight fair, he told his assembled captains. They expect us to follow their rules, protect their civilians, and limit our targets. They are about to learn that humans do not fight fair when our survival is at stake. The second battle began when the enlarged consortium fleet returned to New Texas. This time they brought 500 ships and explicit orders to pacify the human settlements by any means necessary. The aliens had abandoned their careful approach in favor of overwhelming force. Admiral Kickstar commanded the attack fleet with orders to show no mercy. The humans had proven they could not be reasoned with or contained. The galaxy's safety required their removal. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in millennia. The humans used tactics that defied all military logic. They sacrificed entire squadrons to destroy single enemy ships. They turned cargo vessels into guided missiles. They fought with a desperate courage that bordered on madness. Captain Greg Palmer commanded the human destroyer Courage during the battle's turning point. His ship was damaged, his crew was dying, and his weapons were nearly exhausted. But when he saw a consortium attack group moving toward a hospital ship full of wounded civilians, he made a choice that defined the entire war. "All stop," he ordered his surviving crew. "Set course for the enemy flagship." "Captain," his first officer protested, "that's a suicide run." Palmer looked at the young officer with sad eyes. "Sometimes that's what honor requires." The Courage accelerated toward the consortium command ship. Her engines pushed beyond their safety limits. Kickstar's flagship tried to evade, but Palmer had anticipated the maneuver. At the last second, he detonated his ship's entire missile supply in a massive explosion that destroyed both vessels. The sacrifice saved the hospital ship and 3,000 civilian lives. But more importantly, it showed the consortium something they had not expected to see from the violent humans: the willingness to die for principles higher than survival. Admiral Kickstar's final transmission, sent just before his flagship was destroyed, contained only 3 words: "They have honor." The battle ended with both fleets in ruins. The humans had lost 2/3 of their ships, but they still held New Texas. The consortium had lost their most experienced admiral and hundreds of vessels, but they had gained something more valuable: respect for their enemies. In the aftermath of the battle, Elder Morthak stood once again on the observation deck of Station Prime. But this time he was not looking at peaceful cargo ships moving along established routes. He was looking at the wreckage of 2 civilizations that had forgotten how to understand each other. 5 years after the Battle of New Texas, the galaxy looked very different. The old consortium was gone, replaced by something new, something messier, but also something more alive. Ambassador Carol Price stood at the podium in the Grand Assembly Hall on Kalari Prime, preparing to give humanity's first official address to the reformed Galactic Alliance. The hall was packed with delegates from 47 different species. Some were old friends who had learned to accept human ways. Others were former enemies who had come to respect human determination. A few were new species who had been discovered during the great expansion that followed the war. Friends, allies, and former adversaries, Price began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 5 years ago, humanity arrived in this galaxy like uninvited guests at a formal dinner party. We were loud, we were rude, and we completely ignored your rules about proper behavior. A few chuckles echoed through the hall. The early disasters of human diplomacy had become legendary, though now they were remembered with humor rather than horror. Today I stand before you not to apologize for who we are, but to celebrate what we have become together. The galaxy is no longer the quiet, orderly place it once was. It is louder, more chaotic, and definitely more dangerous. It is also more free, more dynamic, and more full of possibilities than anyone thought possible. Elder Morthak listened from his seat in the front row. The ancient Kalari looked older than his centuries, but his eyes held something they had, not contained in millennia: hope. The war had changed him, forced him to question everything he believed about peace and civilization. What he had discovered was that true peace was not the absence of conflict, but the ability to resolve conflict without destroying each other. In the years since the war ended, the galaxy had seen changes that would have been impossible under the old consortium. Human exploration teams had discovered 17 new habitable worlds and made contact with 6 previously unknown species. Human scientists had developed new technologies that benefited everyone. Human traders had established new routes that brought prosperity to worlds that had been isolated for centuries. But the humans had also caused problems. They had started 3 diplomatic incidents, 2 trade wars, and 1 minor rebellion on a world where they tried to introduce democracy. They had a talent for making enemies as quickly as they made friends. Ambassador Price continued her speech. We humans have learned much in these 5 years. We have learned that the galaxy is bigger than Earth, that other species have wisdom we lack, and that sometimes patience really is better than action. We have also taught you a few things. We have shown you that rules are meant to serve people, not control them. We have demonstrated that sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. And we have proven that the galaxy is strong enough to handle a little chaos. Dr. Zixara, now serving as the Alliance's Secretary of Interspecies Relations, smiled at those words. The young Kalari had become humanity's strongest advocate among the alien species. She had spent years studying human culture, trying to understand what made them so different from everyone else. What she had discovered was both simple and profound. Humans did not wait for permission to exist. They saw a problem and tried to fix it. They found an opportunity and seized it. They encountered an obstacle and either went around it, through it, or knocked it down. This approach terrified species that valued careful planning and gradual change, but it also accomplished things that careful planning never could. The war had ended not with victory or defeat, but with exhaustion and understanding. Both sides had fought themselves to a standstill, losing so many ships and people that continuing the conflict became pointless. The breakthrough came when a joint human-alien rescue mission saved the crew of a damaged research vessel. Commander Pete Walsh had been leading a human patrol when they detected the distress signal. The ship was consortium, technically still an enemy vessel. But Walsh saw people in danger, and humans did not abandon people in danger, even if they were enemies. His rescue ships arrived at the same time as a consortium fleet led by Captain Veltara. For a tense moment it looked like the rescue would turn into another battle, but then Walsh opened a communication channel to the alien commander. Captain Veltara, this is Commander Walsh. We have medical supplies and engineering. Teams ready to assist. Do you want to fight or do you want to save lives? Veltara looked at her tactical display, showing human and alien ships side by side around the crippled research vessel. For the first time since the war began, she saw humans not as invaders or destroyers, but as potential partners in something larger than conflict. Commander Walsh, this is Captain Veltara. We accept your assistance. Let's save some lives. The joint rescue mission lasted 3 days. Human and alien crews worked together to repair the damaged ship and evacuate the wounded. They shared food, medical supplies, and technical expertise. They learned each other's names and told stories about their homes. When the mission ended, both sides found it hard to return to fighting. The formal end of the war came 6 months later, not through treaties or negotiations, but through simple exhaustion. Both sides had lost too much to continue. The consortium's rigid control had been shattered. Humanity's expansion had been slowed. Neither side had achieved what they wanted, but both had learned something valuable. Elder Morthak had proposed the solution that became the Galactic Alliance. Instead of one rigid system of laws and rules, there would be multiple approaches to civilization. Species could choose which standards to follow, which agreements to sign, which communities to join. The galaxy would be messier, but it would also be more free. Ambassador Price looked out at the assembled delegates, seeing the changes that 5 years had brought. The Zephyrians had learned to be more direct in their communications, borrowing human techniques for faster decision-making. The Nixari had adopted human-style competitive markets that had boosted their economy. Even the conservative Kalari had begun allowing more individual freedom in their society. The humans have not been perfect neighbors, Price admitted. We have made mistakes, caused problems, and occasionally blown things up that we probably should not have blown up. But we have also brought energy to a galaxy that had become too comfortable with the status quo. She gestured to the mixed delegation in the hall. Look around you. 5 years ago, this kind of gathering would have been impossible. Species that had not spoken to each other for centuries are now working together. Problems that had been ignored for generations are being addressed. The galaxy is growing again, expanding again, becoming something new. Dr. Helen Craig, humanity's leading expert on alien cultures, watched the speech from the diplomatic section. She had spent the last 5 years documenting the changes that human arrival had brought to galactic civilization. Her research had become required reading for diplomats throughout the Alliance. The most important thing we have learned, Craig often told her students, is that there is no single correct way to be civilized. The old consortium believed their way was the only way. Humans believed their way was better. Both were wrong. Civilization is not a destination. It is a journey. And the best journeys are taken with companions who see the universe differently than you do. The changes were visible everywhere in the galaxy. Human colonies dotted the frontier, bringing new technologies and new ideas to worlds that had been isolated for centuries. Mixed crews of humans and aliens explored regions of space that neither group could have reached alone. Trade routes that had been static for millennia were now dynamic networks that adapted to changing needs and opportunities. But the most important change was harder to see. The galaxy had learned to grow again. For 3,000 years, the consortium had focused on maintaining what existed rather than creating what could be. The arrival of humanity had shattered that comfortable stagnation. Commander Walsh now served as captain of the Alliance ship Harmony, the first vessel to be jointly commanded by human and alien officers. His crew included Zephyrians, Nexari, Kalari, and a dozen other species. They explored new worlds, mediated disputes, and showed the galaxy what cooperation could accomplish. The funny thing, Walsh often told new crew members, is that we came to the galaxy thinking we were behind everyone else. We were the new kids, the primitives, the ones who had to catch up. But it turned out the galaxy needed us as much as we needed them. They had forgotten how to dream big. We reminded them. Ambassador Price concluded her speech with words that would be remembered for generations. Humanity arrived late to the galactic community. We came armed and uninvited, disrupting your peace and challenging your assumptions. We forced you to question rules you had followed for millennia. We brought chaos to your order, noise to your silence, and conflict to your harmony. The hall was completely quiet, every delegate hanging on her words. And in return, you taught us patience, wisdom, and the value of working together. You showed us that the galaxy is vast enough for many different ways of living. You proved that even the most different species can find common ground. She paused, looking around the hall, one final time,